Shalom, 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 Israel. This is Captain Paul Israel from Kingdom Builders of Israel LLC. And today's class topic is going to be on John chapter 1, verse 1, breakdown part 2. Again, Israel, today's class topic is going to be on John chapter 1, verse 1, breakdown part 2. Okay, Israel, so this is going to be a continuation of the book of John chapter 1, understanding on this particular series. Okay, so Israel, get out your pen and notepad, Israel, because this is going to be another good lesson to discuss on this particular chapter. Okay, so we're going to start off in the book of John chapter 1 verse 6 on the continuation where we left off from John chapter 1 verse 5 on the part 1 understanding of John chapter 1 verse 1 breakdown part 1. Okay, so now this is a continuation of the part 2 lesson, okay, on John chapter 1 verse 1. Okay, so we're going to start out again in John chapter 1 verse 6. So of course, in general, this is John, who was one of the disciples of Yeshua Mashiach, writing this information down. So you have to take in consideration that John, who was a disciple of Yeshua Mashiach, he is already in the understanding of history. Okay, so John the disciple is very knowledgeable on history. Okay, so he's relaying this information by writing this information down. Okay, John chapter 1 verse 6. There was a man sent from Elohim whose name was John. So again, this was a particular man sent from Elohim whose name was John. So in this verse, this is going into the understanding of John the Baptist. Okay, this is going to the understanding of John the Baptist. So John, the disciple of Yeshua Mashiach, is writing information down pertaining to explain history pertaining to John the Baptist. Okay, so this is what John, the disciple of Yeshua Mashiach, is writing down. Okay, so it says, there was a man sent from Elohim whose name was John the Baptist, because the Most High elects certain men to teach his word, okay, on earth. Point blank, period. Okay, so let's go to the next verse. John chapter 1 verse 7. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. So again, it says, the same came for a witness. So this is explaining that John was a witness. So this particular John is talking about John the Baptist. He was the witness. Okay, and it's going to explain who John the Baptist was witnessing. Okay, it says, the same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light. So John the Baptist came to bear witness of Yeshua Mashiach, who is being referred as to being this light. Okay, so I'm going to read this again in the right understanding. It says, the same came for a witness. So John came for a witness, to bear witness of Yeshua Mashiach, who is basically a representation of this light. Okay, it says, John came for a witness, to bear witness of Yeshua Mashiach. Okay, so that's what it's really saying. But as you can see, the prophets spoke in metaphors or allegories or similitudes to explain certain understanding. Okay, because again, the prophets wrote in code at times in the scriptures or in these particular verses. So again, it says, the same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. It says that all men through him might believe. Okay, so most people may say, hey, see, it's talking about everybody, right? All nations, right? Everybody may believe on Christ. No, this is talking about all men through him might believe. It's talking about all men of the Hebrew Israelite ministry of understanding might believe on Christ. Because again, Christ's ministry prior before it came, John the Baptist ministry was only centered on teaching to the children of Israel. John the Baptist's ministry was pertaining to the Hebrew Israelites only. So this is who this all men is referring to. All men of the Hebrew Israelites might believe on Yahshua the Mashiach, the Black Messiah. Okay, so again, John chapter 1 verse 7, John came for a witness to bear witness of Yahshua the Mashiach, that all men of Israel through Yahshua the Mashiach might believe. You see that? You see that? That's what it's saying. Okay, that's what it's saying. Okay, so that's the right understanding. Okay, so it says the same came for a witness. John was that witness to bear witness of Yahshua the Mashiach, that all men through him, through Yahshua the Mashiach, might believe. Okay, so through Yahshua the Mashiach, the Israelites are supposed to be believing that Yahshua the Mashiach is their Lord and Savior. Okay, that's going to redeem them out of captivity, out of bondage. That's what it's explaining theoretically. Okay, and that, of course, in general, Yahshua the Mashiach died on the cross eventually for the sins of Israel in this understanding. Okay, because John the Baptist ministry came before Yahshua the Mashiach's ministry, and John the Baptist ministry came before Yahshua the Mashiach was crucified on that cross. Okay, so John the Baptist is the beginning centerpiece of Yahshua the Mashiach's ministry. Okay, go to the next verse. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. So it's basically repeating itself again. Okay, as far as the understanding is basically repeating itself again, but it's just establishing that John the Baptist was not that light. Okay, so it's explaining that John the Baptist was not Yahshua the Mashiach. Okay, but it says, but was sent to bear witness of the light. So John was sent to bear witness of Yahshua the Mashiach, the Black Messiah, who, of course, in general, Yahshua the Mashiach, the Black Messiah, is in representation of this light. Okay, so that's what it's really saying in its proper context, that John the Baptist was not Yahshua the Mashiach, but John was sent to bear witness of Yahshua the Mashiach, the Black Messiah. That's what it's really saying. But as you can see, it's just speaking in metaphor and code. Okay, based upon the certain terms of wording. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light, because John the Baptist was sent to the earth to bear witness of Yahshua the Mashiach, the Black Messiah. Point blank, period. So now we go to the next verse. It says, John chapter 1 verse 9. It says, that was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. So you see this, Israel? So it's saying, in this right understanding, Yahshua the Mashiach, of course, was that true light. That's what it's talking about when it said that was the true light, because Yahshua the Mashiach is the light for the Hebrew Israelites, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. Talking about once Yahshua the Mashiach's understanding is given to the Hebrew Israelites, whether man, woman, or children, guess what? They're going to have the right understanding to walk in Yahweh's righteousness according to his law, statutes, and commandments with the right type of spirit, which is going to be a good light for the children of Israel that cometh to the earth. So when it says world, it's really saying the earth. Okay? Which lighteth every man that cometh into the earth. Because the word world has many different definitions of understanding, but in this context it's talking about earth. Okay, it says that was the true light, because Yahshua the Mashiach is that true light for the children of Israel, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. Because once you come into Yahshua Mashiach's right understanding with the right type of spirit, you're now going to learn how to walk in Yahweh's righteousness. On his law, statutes, and commandments properly with the right spirit and mind while you are on the earth. That's what it's saying. So once you come with Christ's understanding, you're now walking in righteousness on earth. Okay, whether you are a man, woman, or children. So again, this is going into the Hebrew Israelites, of course, walking in that light of Yahshua the Mashiach's understanding. Okay, so they can be in the good graces of the Most High Yah. So that's what it's saying, that you have to go through Christ to walk on this earth with the right type of spirit. That's what John the Baptist was relaying for the children of Israel to be basically prepared for Yahshua Mashiach's ministry. Okay? And the ministry of Yahshua Mashiach was how to keep Yahweh's law, statutes, and commandments in the right spirit. Okay? That's what it's saying. Okay, so now we go to the book of John chapter 1 verse 10. John chapter 1 verse 10. This is the next verse. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. So you see this, Israel? So again, now this particular verse can be confusing for many people, right? In this understanding, in John chapter 1 verse 10, you will have Hebrew camps, primarily IUIC. They will say, see, when you read this verse, this is talking about the Black Messiah, Yahshua the Mashiach, or they're saying this verse is talking about Christ, the whole verse, right? The whole verse is talking about Christ. No, that's the wrong understanding. The Christian church primarily will be teaching in John chapter 1 verse 10, and they'll say as well that this whole verse is talking about Christ, right? This is talking about Jesus, right? This is what doctrines that's coming out the Christian church are saying, that this one verse, John chapter 1 verse 10, is talking about Jesus, or it's talking about Christ, right? So basically that's the wrong understanding, to believe that this whole verse right here is talking about Yahshua the Mashiach only. No. This verse is not just talking about Christ only. So we're going to break this particular verse piece by piece so people can get the right understanding of what's going on here in this verse. So basically there will be no more confusion going on, because we have Hebrew camps and also the Christian faith religions and other religions pushing nonsense doctrines or manipulating or having the wrong interpretation of this particular verse. Okay, so we're going to piece this together one by one. Okay, John chapter 1 verse 10. He was in the world. It says he was in the world. So Yahshua Mashiach was on the earth doing his ministry, teaching this word, right? He was in the flesh on earth. That's what it's explaining when it says he was in the world, and the world was made by him. Now, this is the confusion part, right? This is the confusion part, that these religions or some Hebrew camps are saying, now this is talking about Christ, where it says the world was made by him. No. When you go into this understanding, right, it's a separation. So you have a comma right here. So it's separating this understanding from this understanding. Okay? He was in the world. So this is Yahshua Mashiach being on earth in Israel, right? That's what it's explaining. And the world was made by him. This is going into the understanding of a separation. This right here is explaining that Yahweh was the one that made the world or made the earth. Okay? Yahweh is the one that made the earth. So John, the disciple, is separating the understanding. Okay? It says he was in the world. So Yahshua Mashiach was on earth, and the world was made by him, and the earth was made by Yahweh. That's what John, the disciple, is explaining. And the world knew him not. So when it says the world knew him not, that's going into the Israelites is that world. Okay, the Israelites is that world that did not know about the Most High Yah. Because that's why the children of Israel just kept breaking Yahweh's law, statutes, and commandments, because they really don't know about the Most High Yah like that. Okay, they have no relation with the Most High because why? The children of Israel primarily were breaking Yahweh's law, statutes, and commandments. Okay, so to know the Most High, you have to be keeping Yahweh's law, statutes, and commandments in the right spirit, which the children of Israel were not doing. So that's why it says, and the world knew him not, or and the Israelites knew him not. The Israelites did not know the Most High Yah like that. Okay, because they was breaking or transgressing his commandments. Okay, so that's the right understanding in John chapter 1 verse 10. So Yahshua was in the world, and the earth was made by Yahweh, and the Israelites did not know Yahweh. That's what it's really saying in the book of John chapter 1 verse 10. Okay, it's a separation because you have Yahshua the Mashiach and then you have the Most High Yah. Two separate persons. Okay? This is the right understanding in John chapter 1 verse 10. But you got to remember the understanding that John, the disciple, has knowledge of history of understanding, and he's putting this all in one verse. Okay, so this is why when you go into these verses, you just can't just run with what you see in front of you. You have to deal with learned men in the scriptures to get the right breakdown of basically interpretation. Okay, so this is why you Hebrew Israelites can't just listen to anybody out here, because you will have the wrong interpretation. Now, of course, in general, in this lesson, we're going to validate why I broke it down like this, and then we're going to precept the understanding to show that this is the right understanding on what I presented to you. So you can't question what was presented and say, oh, you just taking that out of context. No, we're going to break this particular verse on down. Okay, this is why we titled this lesson on John chapter 1 verse 1 breakdown part 2, because we're going to break this particular chapter down of understanding. Okay. So now we go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 8, verse 22. We're going to go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 8, verse 22, to prove that the earth, where it says the world is talking about the earth, was made by Yahweh. We're going to get proof of this understanding that Yahweh is the one that's forming everything. Okay? Proverbs chapter 8 verse 22. And of course, this is Yahshua the Mashiach speaking through the spirit of King Solomon, giving him the understanding. Okay. It says, Yahweh possessed me in the beginning of his way, before his works of old. So Yahweh is the one that created Yahshua the Black Messiah from the beginning, before he created the other things that we see or observe. Okay. So Yahshua the Mashiach was Yahweh's first creation. That's what he's explaining to King Solomon. Before his works of old. So Yahshua the Mashiach is explaining to King Solomon that Yahshua the Mashiach was with the Father before Yahweh had formed the earth, or formed different galaxies, or formed different elements in the solar system. That's what Yahshua the Mashiach is relaying to King Solomon. Okay. So we go back. John chapter 1 verse 10, it says, he was in the world, talking about Yahshua the Mashiach was on earth, right, doing the ministry or doing the works of the Most High, and the world was made by him, or it said the earth was made by Yahweh, because we got proof that Yahshua the Mashiach is confirming that Yahweh is the one that's forming these things on the earth of understanding. Okay, and also forming things in the solar system. Okay, so we breaking this thing on down. So we go back to John chapter 1 verse 10 to explain why John the disciple used this understanding in this concept. Okay, it says he was in the world. So Yahshua the Mashiach was on earth. Let's see what John the disciple was explaining when he had wrote this understanding that Yahshua the Mashiach was in the world, or Yahshua the Mashiach was on earth. Okay, we're going to go to the book of Colossians chapter 1 verse 15. And of course, this is Apostle Paul writing this understanding down. Okay, this is the book of Colossians chapter 1 verse 15. It says, who is the image of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn of every creature. Whoa, wait a minute. You see this, Israel? You see this? It said, who is the image of the invisible Elohim? So Yahshua the Mashiach was on earth operating in that representation of the Most High. But Yahshua the Mashiach was not the Most High. He was in representation of Yahweh's righteousness on earth. Okay, he was that reflection of his Father, the Most High Yah, to walk in the right spirit, to show the Hebrew Israelites how to walk in the right spirit, because he was in the image of the invisible Elohim, because the children of Israel did not see the Most High, right? So the Most High is invisible to the children of Israel on earth. So Yahshua the Mashiach is making himself visible so that the children of Israel can see righteousness of Yahweh through the Son of the Most High. That's what Apostle Paul is explaining, that Yahshua the Mashiach was in that spiritual understanding of righteousness on earth in a representation of the Most High Yah. But the Most High Yah and Yahshua the Mashiach are not the same person. Okay? So that's what it's explaining. And then also, Apostle Paul let it be known that Yahshua the Mashiach was the firstborn of every creature. So Yahshua the Mashiach was the firstborn of every creature, because Yahweh formed Yahshua the Mashiach first before every other creature that got established in existence. Okay, that's what makes Yahshua the Mashiach the Son of the Most High. Okay, that's why Apostle Paul is saying the firstborn of every creature. So Yahshua the Mashiach was the firstborn of every creature, who was in the image or representation of the Most High Yah. Just like that saying says, like father, like son. Okay, so Yahshua the Mashiach is operating in that right spirit, like his father's operating in that right spirit, constantly, continuously, daily. Okay, so that's what we gotta aspire to, walk in the spirit of the Most High Son, Yahshua the Mashiach. We have to strive for perfection. Okay, so when people see you, they supposed to see that imagery or that spirit understanding of Christ through you, by your actions, or by how you conversate, or how you carry yourself with that zeal. That zeal has to be present within you so you could be in the right spirit of Yahshua the Mashiach, the Black Messiah, who is in that representation of the Father, who's sitting on that throne, pushing righteousness of understanding through the earth in these last days. Okay. So now we got the understanding that Yahshua the Mashiach was that representation of Yahweh's righteousness on earth. Okay, so that's what John chapter 1 verse 10 is getting into, where Yahshua the Mashiach was in the world, or Yahshua the Mashiach was on earth. Okay, pushing Yahweh's commandments and teaching the Hebrew Israelites how to walk in that right spirit of Yahweh's righteousness correctly. Now we're going to get the understanding to show further proof that the earth was made by Yahweh. And this is that understanding in John chapter 1 verse 10 is getting into, that, of course, in general, this is not talking about Christ is the one that made the world and stuff like that. No, that's not what this is talking about. This is talking about Yahweh was the one this is being referred to as making that world or the earth understanding. It's talking about Yahweh in this understanding. This is not talking about Yahshua the Mashiach right here. Okay? So we're going to get proof of that. Okay? So it says Colossians chapter 1 verse 16. Okay? This again is Apostle Paul writing his understanding down. Okay? It says, for by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. You see this, Israel? So it says, for by him were all things created. That's talking about Yahweh. This is not talking about Yahshua the Mashiach. This is not talking about Christ. This is talking about Yahweh. Because we established earlier that in the book of Proverbs chapter 8 verse 22 that Yahshua the Mashiach was letting it be known to King Solomon that Yahweh was the one that was forming all these things from his works of old. And that Yahweh had formed and created Yahshua the Mashiach. Okay? So Yahshua the Mashiach is letting it be known that the Father, who's the Most High Yah, is the one forming and creating these elements that we see existing. Okay? And Apostle Paul is letting it be known as well that Yahweh is the one, that created everything. In Colossians chapter 1 verse 16. That Yahweh was the one that created the heaven. Yahweh is the one that created the earth. The visible and the invisible things that exist. Whether they be thrones, talking about whether they be kingdoms established by people, or dominions, or principalities. So any government sector or laws, it's all ordained by the Most High. That's what Apostle Paul is saying. It said, or power. So any weapons, machinery, technology that exists, is all ordained and created by the Most High Yah to put that ability in man to do so. It says all things were created by him. So Yahweh is the director. Yahweh is the creator. So all things was formed by him to do. And for him. And for him. So Yahweh did all these things for himself. Because he is the boss of all bosses. Yahweh does what he wants to do. And that's what, of course, in general, the children of Israel don't understand. Okay? Children of Israel supposed to be keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments. Right? That's their purpose. That's supposed to be their goal to do. Okay? Yahweh created the children of Israel to keep his laws, statutes, and commandments. Okay? It's just that simple. Right? The children of Israel don't even need to be worried about what everything else is going on in this world of wickedness. They need to be worried about keeping Yahweh's laws, statutes, and commandments. Point blank, period. But this is just making it known that Yahweh is the one that's creating all these things that we see existing on earth. Yahweh is the one that created the solar system, the galaxies, and the different dimensions. Okay? He's the one. So this understanding is not talking about Christ, the Black Messiah. This is not talking about him. This is talking about Yahweh. Okay? So let's go back to John chapter 1 verse 10. It says, he was in the world. This is talking about Yahshua the Mashiach was here on earth. And the world was made by him, meaning the earth was made by Yahweh. And the world knew him not, because the Hebrew Israelites didn't know the Most High. They don't know anything about the Most High like that. That's why the children of Israel kept breaking Yahweh's law, statutes, and commandments in many different generations. Even also when you add up till today's time, the children of Israel are still breaking Yahweh's commandments because they really don't know anything about the Most High. Okay? So that's why we have to have Yahshua Mashiach, who's our Lord and Savior, to be in that representation of understanding, to operate in the right spirit, so we can be connected with the Most High Yah in the right spirit. Because now we're learning key principles about his son, the Black Messiah. Because if you don't know anything about the Black Messiah, then you don't have no understanding about the Most High Yah. Point blank, period. Okay, so now we got the understanding of these two different points right here, where Yahshua was in the world, and it says the world was made by Yahweh. So that's the understanding we're getting in this understanding, in this particular verse. Now, when we get to this point, and the world knew him not, we're going to prove that where it says the world right here in this context is going into Israel, is that world that didn't know about the Most High Yah. Okay? We're going to prove that this world is talking about the Hebrew Israelites. So now we go to the book of Isaiah chapter 45 verse 17 to get the right understanding. It says, "But Israel shall be saved in Yahweh with an everlasting salvation. Ye shall not be ashamed, nor confounded, world without end." Whoa, 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 wait a minute. You see this, Israel? You see this? It says, "But Israel shall be saved in Yahweh with an everlasting salvation," because salvation only pertains to the Hebrew Israelites only, which was prophesied by the prophet Isaiah. "Ye shall not be ashamed, nor confounded, world without end." So Israel is that world without end, because the Hebrew Israelites prophecy is they're going to have that new kingdom forever. Okay? Because that is the promise that Yahweh passed down from generation to generation unto the chosen people, who are the Hebrew Israelites only, that they're going to inherit the land of Israel forever. That's why they have an everlasting salvation. Notice you didn't see the Gentile nations have an everlasting salvation. The concern is the Hebrew Israelites. Point blank, period. Okay? So now we got the understanding that at different instances, the word world can mean a people, right? So this particular world of understanding in this particular verse in John chapter 1 verse 10 is going to Israel, is that world that did not know about the Most High Yah. Okay? So Israel is that world, which we prove in Isaiah chapter 45 verse 17, that Israel is that world without end that's going to have everlasting salvation in the future. Okay? So now we're going to also prove that salvation only pertains to Israel again, because you will have Christian churches are saying, oh, you're taking verses out of context. No. Isaiah the prophet is saying that the Hebrew Israelites have everlasting salvation, right? And Isaiah was a prophet of the Most High. He's not going to tell no lie, right? Isaiah the prophet prophesied that Israel has an everlasting salvation. Isaiah never prophesied that all races of people are going to have an everlasting salvation. The everlasting salvation pertains to the Hebrew Israelites. Point blank, period. So now to back up Isaiah, where he stated of Israel getting saved, or Israel only the ones getting everlasting salvation, we're going to go to the book of Psalms chapter 14 verse 7, where King David is going to say the same thing that Isaiah is saying, because we know King David was around before we get to the prophet Isaiah understanding. Okay, so King David is going to say about the salvation pertaining to Israel. Then years later, Isaiah the prophet is going to say the same similar thing, okay, about salvation pertaining to Israel only. Okay, so but in this understanding, the book of Psalms chapter 14 verse 7, this is just talking about King David prophesying on Israel salvation only. Okay, Psalms chapter 14 verse 7. Oh, that the salvation of Israel will come out of Zion, when Yahweh bringeth back the captivity of his people, Jacob shall rejoice, and Israel shall be glad. Whoa, 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 wait a minute. You see this, Israel? You see this? Why doesn't it say the salvation for Israel and also the Gentile nations, they shall be glad and rejoice? You don't see nothing mentioned about Gentiles in this understanding. The concern is the Hebrew Israelites only. It says, oh, that salvation of Israel, because the Hebrew Israelites are the only ones out of all the other Gentile nations. The Hebrew Israelites are the only ones that are in captivity. That's why it says, when Yahweh bringeth back the captivity of his people, because the children of Israel are in captivity, because the children of Israel are supposed to be in their homeland, Israel, observing Yahweh's law, statutes, and commandments. That's what the children of Israel are not figuring out. The children of Israel are thinking that they are free because they're in another land. No, you're not free, because you're supposed to be in the land of Israel, keeping Yahweh's law, statutes, and commandments throughout your generation. That's what makes you free. You're not free under these Gentile nations. Under these Gentile nations, you're learning their customs and their ways and practices. Which goes against the commandments of the Most High Yah. So that means you Hebrew Israelites are living in sin. You Hebrew Israelites are living in continuous sin, breaking Yahweh's laws, statutes, and commandments. Now you're looking around and saying, why I'm under these curses? Why bad things are happening to me as a people? Because you're not operating in the right spirit of Yahweh's righteousness. That's why. That's why you can't catch a break. That's why you can't get no justice in the land of your captivity. Because you have forsaken Yahweh's commandments. You have forsaken your covenant agreement that you made in times past. So now the Most High is pouring out the spirit of understanding to the prophets in this Bible and explaining that you have salvation coming, but you have to keep Yahweh's law, statutes, and commandments. And you have to be in the right spirit and acknowledge the Son of the Most High, Yah, who is the Black Messiah, Yahshua the Mashiach. You have to have that understanding of two components of the commandments and also the acknowledgement of his Son, Yahshua the Mashiach. You have to be rolling with that type of spirit so you can inherit that land of Israel as a reward for you as a people. Yahweh is going to reward his people who are the children of Israel on those that hearken to the prophets, those that hearken to the words of his Son, Yahshua the Mashiach, when he was here on earth speaking, thus saith the Most High Yah. Right? So this is what is explaining in this understanding that the Hebrew Israelites that's going to be redeemed from their captivity from wherever land they've been scattered at from the four corners of the earth, they're going to return to the holy land of Israel. They keep Yahweh's law, statutes, and commandments. And it's prophesied that Jacob shall rejoice. The Hebrew Israelites are going to be rejoicing in that day. And Israel shall be glad. There's not going to be no crying. There's not going to be no sorrow going on in Israel. It's going to be rejoicing because the Hebrew Israelites have been redeemed. In this understanding, the Hebrew Israelites will know in the future when they in their homeland that they have a God that fights for them. They have a God that looks after them. This is when the Hebrew Israelites are going to be rejoiced collectively as a nation once they are returned to the holy land of Israel to observe Yahweh's law, statutes, and commandments as it was initially supposed to be intended. Okay, and then also they're going to be ruled over by the Black Messiah, Yahshua the Mashiach. Okay, he's going to be the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Okay, point blank, period. Okay, so again, this is a cut of understanding to you Christians. And also you Christian Hebrew Israelites, this is a cut unto you too as well, because y'all are pushing the notion that salvation is for the Gentile nations as well, when it's not. The prophets didn't teach that. The prophets taught that salvation only pertained to the Hebrew Israelites. Point blank, period. Okay, we're going to let this Bible be true and every man a liar. In Psalm chapter 14, verse 7, it says, "Oh, that the salvation of Israel were come out of Zion, when Yahweh bringeth back the captivity of his people. And it explained who his people were. The people of Jacob, the people of Israel, the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom of Israel. Okay, it's explaining the separation. Okay, Jacob, the southern kingdom, then Israel, the northern kingdom. They both collectively in the group shall be happy. They shall be glad and rejoicing. That's why in general, King David separated understanding, because right now in the future, and that's why King David has separated Jacob and Israel understanding, right? He said Jacob shall rejoice and Israel shall be glad, because King David knew there was going to be a split in Israel. There was going to be a split in the kingdom, because he would have just said Israel shall rejoice and be glad. He split it up because it was already prophesied of understanding that, hey, the Israelites are going to be split up into two nations, but they're going to be unified in Israel. So all the 12 tribes of Israel are going to be happy in the land of Israel because they got redeemed. from captivity. Point blank period. So now we go back to John chapter 1 verse 10. So now we got the right understanding now. It says he was in the world. Talking about Yahshua the Mashiach was on earth and the world was made by him. Talking about the earth was made by Yahweh. And the world knew him not. Talking about the Hebrew Israelites did not know the Most High Yah. That's what it's saying in the book of John chapter 1 verse 10. Okay, so now we go to Isaiah chapter 45 verse 18 to prove that the earth was only made by Yahweh. Okay, this is going to be a cut to what IUIC and these other Hebrew camps are pushing.
You thought we went on a mountain and spoke to the Heavenly Father. No, the Father we spoke with was Christ. Read that.
John chapter 1 and verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
And the Word was God. Go ahead.
The same was in the beginning with God.
The same was in the beginning in Genesis with God. Go ahead.
All things were made by Him.
All things were made by Him.
And without Him.
And without Him.
Was not anything made that was made.
Go ahead.
In Him was life. And the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness. And the darkness comprehended it not.
Jump down to verse 14, I think. I'm not looking at it.
Verse 14. And the Word was made flesh.
And the Word was made flesh. Go ahead.
And dwelt among us.
And dwelt among us. Who is that, brothers? Christ. That's Christ.
This is a cut to these Christians that are saying that Christ is the one that created everything. Okay, this is a cut to the Hebrew camps. And also this is going to be a cut to the Christians. Okay, because Yahweh is the one that created everything. Point blank period. Isaiah chapter 45 verse 18. This is going to prove that Yahweh is the one forming and creating everything by himself. Point blank period. Isaiah chapter 45 verse 18. For thus saith Yahweh that created the heavens, Elohim himself, that formed the earth and made it. He have established it. He created it not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. I am Yahweh, and there is none else. Whoa, wait a minute. You see this, Israel? You see this? You see what Prophet Isaiah is prophesying on the understanding? Right? In Isaiah chapter 45 verse 18, that Yahweh is speaking through the spirit of Isaiah to write this information down. Yahweh is speaking directly through Isaiah saying this. For thus saith Yahweh that created the heavens. Yahweh is the one that created the solar system, the galaxies, the planets. Okay? Elohim himself that formed the earth and made it. So Elohim himself. You see that, Israel? Elohim himself. This is not talking about Christ. As you can see, it says Elohim himself that formed the earth and made it. So Yahweh made the earth himself. You don't see nowhere in this understanding where it says Christ made the earth. Okay? It don't say nothing about Christ made the earth. It said Elohim himself that formed the earth and made it. He have established it. Yahweh established it. Meaning he put that time, date, and stamp on when he was going to create the earth. And all the other elements in the universe. Okay? He created it. Not in vain. So Yahweh didn't form the earth for no reason. That's what it's saying. He created it not in vain. Yahweh established the earth for a particular reason. Okay, to have his chosen people, the children of Israel, and also to have his son, Yahshua the Mashiach, to rule on earth. Point blank, period. He formed it to be inhabited. Exactly. You see that? Yahweh formed the earth so it can have people on the earth. Yahweh formed the earth to have his chosen people on the earth. Yahweh formed the earth so Yahweh can have his son ruling the earth. Point blank, period. That's what it's saying. I am Yahweh and there is none else, because Yahweh is the boss of all bosses. Yahweh is the head. Okay? Yahshua the Mashiach, the Black Messiah, he has the answer to the Father. Yahshua the Mashiach is under the Most High Yah. And also Yahweh and Yahshua are not the same person. So again, the Bible makes it crystal clear. The Bible makes it crystal clear that Yahweh is the one that's creating everything. Okay? Point blank, period. Y'all have to understand the role and order, you Hebrew Israelites. Okay, so now we go back to John chapter 1 verse 10. Now we got the right understanding of what's going on here. He was in the world. Yahshua the Mashiach was on earth, because we know that Yahweh is put in position as the invisible Elohim, because Yahweh is where? In the heavenly realm. Yahweh is in the heavenly realm, so he's invisible on earth understanding. Okay? So who is in representation of the Father? That'll go to the Son. Yahshua the Mashiach, the Black Messiah, when he was on earth understanding. So he was the one in the world. When we read John chapter 1 verse 10. And the world was made by him. So now we got that right understanding that the world or the earth was made by Yahweh. Because Yahweh already established through prophet Isaiah, Isaiah chapter 45 verse 18, that he was the one creating all these things. He was the one that formed the earth. It says Elohim himself that formed the earth and made it. He have established it. Point blank, period. Yahweh is the one that's creating and forming the earth. So now we got the understanding here. And the world knew him not. So now we already got the understanding. According to a course in general, Isaiah chapter 45 verse 17 proves that Israel is that world that we go back to John chapter 10 was getting into. So Israel is that world that did not know the Most High Yah. Because the Most High Yah is not on earth. Okay? Yahweh is in the heavenly realm. So the Hebrew Israelites don't know nothing about the Most High Yah like that. Because why? The Hebrew Israelites are not keeping Yahweh's commandments. To know the Most High, to know the Father, you got to be what? Knowing his law, statutes, and commandments. Rehearsing the righteous acts. Through the Son. Through the Son of Yahshua the Mashiach's spirit of acknowledgement. Because we have many Hebrew Israelites that don't acknowledge the Son of the Most High, which is evil to do. Okay? It's hierarchy in rank position. Yahweh want everybody who's a Hebrew Israelite to acknowledge his Son, the Black Messiah. Okay? Because Yahshua the Mashiach is Yahweh's representative. So you have to acknowledge the Son. Point blank, period. Because Yahshua the Mashiach was Yahweh's first creation. So you have no choice to acknowledge the Son. Point blank, period. Because if it wasn't for Yahshua, none of us would be here. Okay? So if you deny the Son, you deny your own soul. Point blank, period. So you have to acknowledge the Son of the Most High, because he was Yahweh's first creation, which we established in the book of Colossians chapter 1 verse 15, that Yahshua the Mashiach who was in the image of the invisible Elohim and the firstborn of every creature. Okay, and this came out of Apostle Paul's mouth. Okay, so this is how you break down this Bible properly. See, as you can see, you could precept the understanding and everybody is all on one accord with the same understanding. The issue is people are taking verses out of context because they are basically unlearned. So again, now we have the right understanding of the book of John chapter 1 verse 10. Okay, so again, we're going to continue this understanding in the part 3 lesson so we can finish everything up with the John chapter 1 verse 1 breakdown series. Okay, so Israel, hopefully you enjoyed this quick lesson on John chapter 1 breakdown part 2 lesson. And other than that, share this content with your family and friends to give them the right understanding of what's going on here. Okay, we got to cut through these lying doctrines that's out here. Okay, and of course, IUIC and these other Hebrew camps and these Christian religions, they need to just stop lying on this Bible. You don't have the right understanding. But guess what? The prophets are back now. Now you're getting the right understanding. Okay, you Hebrew Israelites. Okay, you're getting the truth right, front, face, and center. So, again, you have no excuses, okay, that, oh, I never heard the truth. It doesn't matter. The point is the truth is made publicly. So you have no excuses, okay? So the right understanding has been presented unto you because Yahweh has love for his people that get the right understanding. And we do know many of the Hebrew Israelites will not accept this understanding, even though we broke this understanding down with many precepts to back up the claims of this understanding as far as John chapter 1 breakdown. Okay, but many Hebrew Israelites are rebellious, and again, they don't know or acknowledge the prophets like that. They rather listen to doctrines of men. You know, they like to listen to fables, fantasy stories. Okay, but other than that, Israel, stay tuned for more lessons on this channel, and stay tuned for part 3 of John chapter 1 breakdown series of the completion of this understanding. And going forward, there should be no more confusion going on in the book of John chapter 1 breakdown understanding. Okay, should be no more confusion going on in this chapter of John chapter 1. Okay, other than that, Israel, stay tuned for more videos on this channel, on Kingdom Builders of Israel YouTube channel. Other than that, shalom.